So Ronan, we're outside Trinity here, and there's some news recently of the Book of Kells and trademarks and stuff. What's the story with that?
Well, there was an article last Sunday in the Sunday Independent to the effect that the trustees of Trinity College had applied for a trademark in the words "the Book of Kells," and what actually I just looked at the record down in the trademark office on Monday, and that is correct. They've made an application to own trademark or intellectual property rights in that phrase, and they may have had previous applications before. I'm not really concerned about that. What we're concerned about is this: we're concerned about the issue of who owns the Book of Kells and who is entitled to deal in it. So far as I'm concerned, and so far as many people are concerned, the Book of Kells belongs to the Irish people. And it has been a symbol of the sovereignty of Ireland since medieval times, and has been, to use the old phrase, a glory of Ireland since medieval times, not a glory of Trinity College Dublin, although it happens to reside there, and has done since the 17th century. So while the matter of how Trinity came to acquire the book in the first place is a matter of controversy, many take the view that it was stolen. The librarian of Trinity says that it was given to the college for safekeeping. It's not for me to adjudicate on that. I think it's the first is the real case. But what is more important really is the question of intellectual property rights. To make this formal claim to a title, to property in the book, intellectual property in the book, that is a serious thing, and that must be opposed, in my view.
Yeah. Now, obviously, it's a huge tourist attraction, and it draws in a lot of revenue for Trinity and its library. Most of our other artifacts are in other places. Is the Book of Kells unusual in it being held in Trinity?
It is unusual in being held in Trinity. There are many objects which we may say are part of what are called our national heritage. Some are in the National Museum of Ireland, some are in different parts of the country, some aren't in museums at all. But the Book of Kells came to Trinity in the middle of the 17th century during what are called the era of Cromwell. At a time, and it was presented to Trinity by a man called Jones, who was part of the Cromwellian junta, which ruled and destroyed most of the Catholic country of this country, enslaved people and sent others into banishment, into Connacht. So the circumstances of Trinity, which was, don't forget, Trinity was not set up for the Irish people, it was set up against the Irish people. It was set up, among other things, specifically to destroy what it called papistry, i.e. destroy Catholics. And patently this was a book that was made on Iona or in Kells in the 9th century, the foundation of St. Columcille. The book is called the Book of Columcille in the Irish language. It's a Latin book, it's a gospel, and it so happens that Columcille established what was perhaps the first copyright or intellectual property law in Europe, and in my view, it's not for me to say this, it's for a court to say this, but in my view the intellectual property in the Book of Kells ought to be consistent with Columcille's rule and Columcille's law. It's interesting that Mr. Justice Peter Charlton, in a recent major Irish decision on copyright, on downloading, he noted very, very specifically that Ireland had had a copyright law since the time of Columcille. And basically Columcille affirmed his right to copy the Psalms as one. They came from, the ideas and the words came from God. 2, he hadn't harmed the text. And 3, if there was any benefit in it, he was going to give it to the people.
So the case was kind of ruled against him in the way. I mean, just
King as we have it, the case was ruled against. King Dermot ruled against Columcille first, but Columcille challenged the ruling. He said it was a bad law. And the idea of a bad law is fundamental to the Brehon legal system. Bad laws were sometimes passed, and it meant that the king had to resign. And in this case, King Diarmid did indeed offer to resign. So what Colm Killis said was right. And we do not know, and again, I'm not giving my opinion as a copyright lawyer, but it's my opinion. I'm not the judge to determine this issue. But I don't know of any specific judgment which has overturned Colm Killis and how it might have done that. That's a complex legal issue, but it's a brilliant thing. It is a brilliant thing that Ireland had such an old and such a brilliant law case in the matter of intellectual property. And it's brilliant that this wonderful book, the Book of Kells, and this is the best book of Ireland. It's still more here in the heart of Dublin, the city of Joyce, Yeats, etc. The Book of Kells is the one that people come to see. Yeah. It's still the most potent book of our people. And we really, now we have an opportunity, I feel, to make the case that I've just been making to you here. When I make my criticism of Trinity, you must also remember that Trinity has actually looked after the book very, very well and puts it on display excellently. It's a perfect location to have the book, and intellectual property is a different thing to possession, or who is the appropriate person to have custody of the book. I'm not concerned with that. I don't see any reason why Trinity shouldn't continue to have the book on display and so forth, and to benefit in different ways from that. But I challenge and I claim, if I may use some grandiose language, on behalf of the Irish people, I claim the title to the book on behalf of the intellectual property title and the real property title, ownership of it, on behalf of the Irish people as a whole, against the trustees of Trinity College.
Is there anything to, I mean, we don't really know the full details, but like, you know, the trademark on the actual name Book of Kells, but is there any kind of thing about the actual imagery of the Book of Kells being copyrighted?
I don't think that's the case. I think it's just the phrase the Book of Kells. And what would happen is that if they could put that on different, like shirt, t-shirts, soap, whatever, with a view to selling it on foot of its association with the book. Admittedly, people can't really take a souvenir of the book, so they could take it off soap, I suppose. Yeah.
So it would have a little TM in a circle beside Book of Kells.
That may be what is contemplated, but to be fair, I haven't studied the thing in detail. I'm simply going to deal with the application, which simply uses the phrase the Book of Kells. But that's enough. Do you know what I mean? That is enough. That is a legal claim to intellectual property in the book that belongs to the people. Okay. And that must be resisted.